27th? What is today? 24th. I'd like to call the February 24th meeting of the Shelby Township Planning Commission to order, and I'll ask the secretary to call the roll, please.
Yes, Commissioner DeShaw.
Present.
Commissioner Long.
Present.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Apone.
Here.
Commissioner LeRae.
Here.
Commissioner Turner.
Here.
Chairman Moffett is here, and Secretary Moore is absent, but we have a quorum.
Thank you. First item is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved. Support?
Been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next, approval of the minutes from the February 10th meeting.
So move. Support?
It's been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. First item, correspondence from the city of Sterling Heights. I'll ask the planner to comment.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. City of Sterling Heights is providing the township with a copy of their proposed draft master plan for review and comments. The plan was provided to comply with statutory requirements of the planning enabling legislation. Shelby Township and Sterling Heights share a common boundary along Hall Road from Shaner Road to Hayes Road and from approximately west of Auburn Road to DeQuinder. The most significant area that the two municipalities border is the Hall Road area between Shaner and Hayes. The master plan identifies redevelopment of the former Lakeside Mall, and also the proposed future land use map is largely consistent with the development pattern in Shelby Township, so I don't have any objections with the proposed master plan for Sterling Heights.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the planner? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. LeRae.
I move to approve and support the adoption of the Sterling Heights Master Plan.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner LeRae.
Yes.
Commissioner Turner.
Yes.
Commissioner Pone.
Yes.
Commissioner Deschamps.
Yes.
Commissioner Long.
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Sally.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Next item is site plan preliminary PUD number 24-25, Tony Gallo. Mr. Gallo, or your representatives, or anyone who speaks, I just need name and address, and then when you're done speaking, sign in, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Tony Gallo on behalf of the petitioner, 6303 26 Mile Road. I have with me Ben Loya, our legal counsel, and Andy Wakeland from Giffords Webster, our engineer. Mark Shovers is unable to attend tonight, but we can handle it. So would you like me to present first or the planner first?
Why don't you do that, please?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So, of course, we were before this body back in January, and we had discussion regarding the final building that we're proposing in Town Center Villas. This would be a completion of the project in its entirety. We are proposing one 24-unit building out there, and it was discussed last time regarding the park location and some of the easements that existed there were unacceptable to engineering and the various departments. So we went back to the drawing board and came up with a plan that's before you here tonight, and it essentially, we've moved the building and the rec space park area currently to where it is to the east of where it was proposed before. There's an aerial photo view. If you recall, it was to the very west where that greenbelt area is, and we moved it, we proposed moving it between the two buildings there on the right, removing the temporary access drive or the existing access drive that exists today. That's the second slide there. The third slide. The third slide just clearly depicts where the proposed park is in relationship to the building itself. We do feel that the location of where it's at today, as proposed, is much safer than the existing park, because right now it's accessed by three sides of streets and driving and in and out. This is separated now with curb and gutter parking spaces that encapsulate the proposed park. That shows you the rear view of it there. And that's another view here. Again, showing that sidewalk that's along the front of the entries. So those folks that were currently had a road essentially 5 foot off, 8 foot off their front door will now have a green belt area This plan, is costlier to remove the concrete, but we're open to doing that, and we do feel that it is a better plan and a better use of the property. This depicts the grilling area and the pavilions. Now, these are pavilions without footings, just so everyone knows that. They are surface mounted to the concrete slab that you see there, and the only utility that exists there is the storm sewer, which is existing under a road. So it's much easier if that ever has to be maintained or worked on to, dig in an area that has grass rather than a road. And it is a private storm sewer, so it's not part of the county. And then that just shows a final view of the park area there. We do have that same play set that would be relocated there, and that concludes the layout. Certainly, we'll answer questions after the reviewer, our director has, made her presentation to the board. Ben, do you have anything?
No, I think we'd like the opportunity just to respond.
Correct.
Why don't, you know what the questions are.
You'd like me to go through the whole list right now, 4
address it
pages of?
on the plan?
Pardon?
Yeah, and
Okay.
if there's something that you've missed that she's identified, then.
Sure, no, we have answers to all 4 pages, so if you, I didn't know if you wanted to make a presentation.
You will.
Okay. So basically, on the, Andy, you can give me a hand on this as well. As far as, we've looked at, again, last time we represented this board, that we're not asking for any variances. It is under the C5 district for multi-use property. This, I believe, is under the PUD, is what we're reviewing this under, is that correct? Okay. And, as far as the, I'll turn it over to you, Andy, on some of the specifics, with respect to the comments.
Absolutely. Andy Wakeland with Giffords Webster. I mean, we can go line by line. I think that's what we're requesting.
You're the only ones on the agenda.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, why don't we just, I'm thinking we can just go straight to the department review comments. Does that make the most sense, unless someone has a question in between there? Starting with, a tree permit is going to be required, and that's acknowledged, no problem there. The location of the trash receptacle to be used, that, you can see it just to the northwest of this site is an existing trash enclosure, so we would be utilizing that enclosure for these additional 24 units, which will not overtax that double enclosure that's there. All landscaping needs to meet the township ordinance, not a problem. Skipping over number 4, there was no comment actually there. Number 5, no issues with the proposed development per the assessing department, which sounds great. The van accessible space, we do have a van accessible space. You can see it better on the plans that you have in your packet, but that's just south west of the proposed building. There's a van accessible, and then there's 2 regular ADA accessible to the north of the building. Type A and B accessible units to be provided on the first floor, not a problem. Obviously, we'll get further into that detail as we get through the building permit, hopefully. All utilities to be brought on site by the developer. That's acknowledged. We do have storm running, obviously, through what used to be that Longfellow access aisle, as well as water main to the southwest of the parcel. And we call out on the plans to extend the sanitary lead that is to the southeast side of the parcel. No construction can start until plans have been reviewed, no problem. All applicable easements need to be executed. That's acknowledged. I believe the only easement that will be required will be to adjust the water main easement over top of the hydrant that we're moving. That's the only one that I'm anticipating. Number 11, the relocated recreation area has a sanitary main. I believe this is just a holdover from the last plan. There is no sanitary within the park as shown currently. So I think that may have just been an accidental put in there. Number 12 would be per the fire department, the IFC, 2015 IFC. That's acknowledged. They want us to add no parking fire lane signs along the exterior to the north and to the, I guess we'll call it south. That's not a problem. We've actually had several conversations with the fire marshal and just supplied him with an updated plan today. And to note, Tony had mentioned that we did slightly move the building from that concept that we sent you last time. That was because working with the fire department, they really wanted us to get the access aisles, Fenway and behind the existing buildings to be as wide as possible. So in order to do that, we ended up moving it slightly west, which allowed us to do a 24-foot drive aisle to the north on Fenway and then a 24-foot on the south as well. So that would take care of number 13 as well, as just adding in those signs. Number 14 is the hydrants. You know, like I said, we've had several correspondence. We actually have coverage by 3 different hydrants for this proposed building and the overall site. No permanent structures of any kind can be built in the easement. I believe this, again, is a holdover from the last park area. Number 16, obviously no objection from the Department of Roads. Police Department had no comment, and the engineer's comments. All right, so the engineer had talked about the, I guess, originally proposed Manning Park and Gibbs Park that were there. And I agree that there is a plan out there a long time ago that calls them that, but that was, I guess, never constituted at all. I believe that plan didn't really come to fruition. There was also several hundred additional units that were called out in that plan that were never built. That plan did not succeed. Obviously, in the future building area, there's quite a bit different, like the Redwood development that you can see to the north was never envisioned in that plan as well. And then the Gibbs Park to the south of the site is just vacant grass. The former Manning Park that, I guess, I struggle to call it a park, but the former area that was open, the way you see it today is because my client improved that park. When he purchased the property, it was just vacant. It had a little, I think a little pavement in the middle with a couple of benches, and that was it. And he said, I want to bring it up to a better standard, and that's what he did. So that's number 1. Number 2, obviously, yeah, we tabled on January 13th so that we could come up with a better plan. I think we did actually come up with a much better plan. Yeah, the open space, I think they talk in here about being within the required setback. We aren't counting. We do have some open grass area within the open setback, but we're not counting that in any of our calculations that are shown on the
So
plan.
how's the township wrong on their calculations of open space? Because my understanding is that they're saying this plan doesn't meet the open space requirement.
I mean, I'm not sure if,
Well, I mean, they made, all right, I'll ask the planner then.
well, I guess how the township engineer is wrong.
Well, I'm looking at it, it says acknowledge, we disagree with the recommendation. All right, so you've modified the plan, and now you think you do comply with the township's assessment?
Yes, we definitely, this plan
Okay,
meets it
all
and
right,
goes
that's fine.
above and
Okay,
beyond.
All right, I was just say, I just wanted, if there's, and the planner's gonna have her opportunity to comment, so, all right, go ahead.
Just so I'm clear, we believe it does meet the open space requirement. We don't, we'll address it.
Okay, all right.
I think moving on to,
As long as, you can just go on to things you disagree with. If you're acknowledging what they're saying, I don't need to say, yeah, you agree, so.
understood, absolutely.
Gives you addresses.
The addresses, yeah. Yeah, I think that would be number 2 here. The engineer brought up that the addresses would be kind of an issue, although the assessing department has said that they're fine with the plan. I mean, it's not uncommon for lot splits and things to happen where addresses would change. So, I think my mic turned off, but oh, there we go. Just got to get a little closer. All right, so I guess we differ in that it's an issue. I don't really foresee that being an issue, that the addresses are going to change on these buildings. And I believe the assessor is in agreement. The required setback between buildings, they're saying that we're not in compliance with that, but I noticed that the planner didn't bring that up. I think it's just an interpretation item. They're saying that it's the 20-foot plus the building height. It's actually 20-foot plus the height of the building in excess of 35 feet, which is, we're 37.1 feet. So it's actually 22 feet that we need to have. We're in excess of that, so we do not agree with that. Number 4, they talk about the having the playscape and the plaza area within close proximity to the storm sewer. I disagree. I feel that it's probably much easier to maintain a storm system that's within an open grass area than it is that one that's underneath the road.
If it has to be maintained.
If it has to be, absolutely. Correct.
Trash pickup, we talked
Yeah,
about.
trash
We
pickup.
talked about fire department, we talked about, that concludes it.
Yeah, and I think we're in agreement with the other ones.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you, gentlemen. To the planner?
Thank you, Chairman. So I appreciate all the work that Mr. Gallo has done with his team in relocating this park to the interior of the site. The biggest problem, I think, with this is on the process and the procedure. So if we just brought this in as a site plan under the C5 zoning district, with that C5 zoning district, they would also have to comply with the multiple family district requirements. So some of those things would be, like Mr. Wakeland has mentioned, would be the setbacks between buildings, the minimum distance between buildings, which is rear to rear, side to rear, so on and so forth. So typically with the front to front, it's typically the height of the taller building times 2, also the front to rear, and then rear to rear is always the height of the taller building times 2 would have to be the setback amount. As far as the rear to side, it would be the height of the taller building as well as the side to side and center to side. With that, multiple family district, they also have to meet a 50-foot perimeter setback, which they don't, which I understand that the other buildings don't as well. But that also came in under the Shelby Town Center development. We are here proposing a new building. I'm not sure if it's within the density or not, if it's less the density, because originally when this Shelby Town Center was developed, the Redwood development was part of this proposal. The Shelby Town Center buildings were part of this proposal. So that number that we had complied with density, I don't know. I would have to sit down and figure out all the densities with all the developments that are currently in the area to determine if it's in line with the original proposed density that was for this area itself. So with that being said, they would still need variances for this building, for the perimeter setback, perhaps maybe some of the side to side. I know the one building, you removed Longfellow, and now it's the side, it would be the side to front setback may not be in compliance. But regardless, what I'm trying to say is that even if we brought it in as a C5 under the multiple family zoning district, they would have to seek possibly some variances. Well, with the variances, as we know, they would have to prove a hardship. Well, what's the hardship in this case? The second thing is, and the reason why we did the PUD approval process is because with that, the Planning Commission has the authority to modify the setback requirements without having to go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, because in my opinion, it would be difficult to go in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals and explain that you have a hardship when you're creating this hardship. So thus the reason why we're doing the plan unit developments, because clearly you're not going to meet the perimeter setback, and perhaps maybe some of the distance between building setbacks as well. As far as the recreation and open space area requirements, I noticed that on the plan that they, the areas that they have marked as part of their calculations for open space are islands, and the perimeter setback for the western portion of the property. So that's what the plans show, and that's what I based my review on. So maybe if those weren't included in the calculations, we'll have to figure that out. But that's what the plans show, that those areas that you have designated for open space or recreation were part of a side yard setback. So that's all I have, Chairman.
So holding this application to like an R5 review is appropriate for this exercise?
R5, and then also with that R5, depending on what you're proposing, would also require the multiple family zoning district overlay.
Okay.
I didn't follow that. Why are we now coming on, we're
Because
coming in as a PUD under,
Well, there's two ways. You can come in, well, you can come in as the PUD. The reason why we went the PUD process, because every other development that we have approved in this area of the township has come in as a PUD. They came in as a preliminary PUD and then complete, a final PUD, once all the engineering has been done. So that is the reason why we went the PUD process. But if we went C5, if we followed the C5 with the multiple family district, you also have requirements under that district that this plan doesn't completely meet, and then you would have to seek variances.
we're not doing that.
But we're not doing it that way because the PUD gives the planning commission the ability to deviate from those
Yes,
setbacks
yes.
and
But I heard something about
Without-
R5.
C5.
Or
C5.
C5. Oh, okay,
C5.
sorry. Okay, good. All right,
C5.
fine.
I agree, I think they said R5, but it's C5.
Yeah, I could have been mistaken.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So, if I'm following this right, so under the original PUD, the town center, the Villas 3 would already have been approved, correct? Or there would have been an approval under that initial process?
This building is a whole new building. This was never part of the original Shelby Town Center plan. The buildings that Mr. Gallo has built previously, is it two? Is it two? The buildings that are on the south side of Lakeside Boulevard, those were already part of the development, and the manufactured footings were already in. Everything was already in for those buildings. The building on the north side of the development, the single building that is just east of the Shelby Town Center townhomes, was already part of that development as well. This building was never part of the overall plan. So that is why we're coming in as a PUD, because this building was never, the intent of this area was never included that building.
Thank you.
Through the chair?
If you're going to answer her question.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So as far as the first phase, when we bought the project, one of the buildings had footings. The other 13 buildings had no footings whatsoever. We came in, we constructed those. That was part of Town Center Villas 1. That was our first phase, was 110 units. Then we came back on the north side of the road, and we built this same exact building with 24 units, which was not built and not part of the original plan. That was part of the condominium, that was released from that. We went through that process, and that was 10 buildings in Phase 1, and then came back for building those buildings. We looked at our, as I said before, our title work, our deed, any of the instruments that we have as a buyer and owner of the land has no restriction whatsoever on a park being required on this parcel of land. We're willing to comply with the wishes of this board and the township of maintaining a park and having a park, but that's where we're proposing this building, is where that vacant land once sat. And we do believe we meet all the open space requirements and the setbacks. As far as review,
Okay, I didn't want to get beyond just the initial questions.
Okay.
It's still at the board. You have an opportunity to come back
thank
up.
you, thank you.
Did you have any more?
No,
additional
thank you.
questions?
Yes.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? for the petitioner or the planner?
Yep, I do have a question for Mr. Gallo. Is the building, the proposed building, is it the exact number of units, exact same size as a month ago when you came?
Well, it's just, yes, in terms of what we presented to this board, it's the same building, 24
shifted.
units. 24 units,
Yes.
nothing's changed on the building itself.
Right, okay. I was just checking.
Same building.
Yeah. My comment on I thought it was creative that you eliminated Longfellow Drive, which
Yes.
doesn't seem to be a purposeful drive to the property. And now those apartments, I think that's to building number 2. I think it's an improvement that they walk out into green space and park lake setting. So I agree with that. You know, when we talk about the setbacks, you know, looking out from building number 2, you're going to be looking at the new proposed building, which is fairly close. However, building 1 is also looking at building 2, which is not too far away. So I'm not sure I can disagree with, if we have a setback problem there, I'm not sure I'm going to, I probably could override that just because this is a dense area to begin with, and if you're looking for aesthetically pleasing, I think I'm not going to choose this location. So we have apartments that are very close together of this nature in the area. So I do appreciate it's a better plan than the first one. So that was my comment on the Longfellow Drive.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Turner?
Mr. Gallo, just a question. You earlier said, I believe we meet the open space, or maybe Mr. Wakefield said that.
Yes,
If not, we will address it.
that's right.
How will you address it if you've got the plan and this is what you're showing? And if you don't meet it, how will you address it?
Well, but right now, the plan that we've submitted, we're representing meets the ordinance. If it doesn't, we need to hear from your professionals on how we don't meet that ordinance. Right now, if you look at the C5 zoning, that is the densest zoning in this community. There is no density limit. There's no height limitation. You don't need, you know, and I think the planner would also say that in the C5 district, that is the densest area. And as far as the open space requirements, Andy has a drawing here that depicts how he calculated that, so he can explain that to you, Mr. Turner.
If I can, I do have a couple of copies that I could share with you guys.
Thank you.
So within the C5 district, there's two kinds of open space. There's the plaza, there's the open space, and there's the common open space. You can see I highlighted in green where the plaza, the common open space, is located, and I think we're 1,068 square feet around that pergola area. And then the remainder red area is open space that is outside of the setback. I do note the engineer had mentioned that it needs to be a contiguous area to be counted as common open space. But I think if you read the ordinance, it says usable open space, and where possible, the common open space shall be planned as a contiguous area. It's not a must. They gave us the out to say, we realize it's not going to work in every situation. And you'll notice on this plan, because I disagree, but because we are not allowed to use that far western parcel or area, it'll remain as open space even though we're not counting it. So we're considerably over the open space that's needed.
Can I see that, Julie? I look at this, oh, I'm sorry, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
it's okay. I'm just, as I look at the map, there seems to be some areas that seem, apparently are considered open space that clearly aren't usable. On Fenway Drive, there's looks like a 3-foot strip. You know, again, I don't know what the dimension is, but, you know, and along Harvard Drive, it looks like a
I can't hear
long.
you.
There are
Can't hear
long,
you.
there are no, do you have your map in front of you?
Yes.
Or you know the space?
Yep.
So on the west side, you know, there's that long strip up. I don't know if
Yes.
that's, could be, or along to the north side, there are two pieces. I don't know that you can count that as usable.
Okay,
Or how would that be usable?
let me just, Mr. Chair, to address that, the property, the 10,000 square feet roughly that's to the west of that this body last time said we couldn't use for open space, do you recall that meeting when we had the western parcel of open space land, which is currently a dog run, which is currently where the tenants bring their pets, it's a waste station. There's 10,000 square feet of open space there. That's what's being used right now. But pursuant to your request, this body's request and planning's request, they said we couldn't count that, right? But it exists. The reality is that 10,000 square foot of open space to the west is still there. It's still being
So
used.
you could, so with that logic, so there could be, you could have 10,000 square feet on your original development south of Lakeside Boulevard, and that would count.
No, that's not accurate. We're only using the northern parcel.
But I'm just saying, it has to be usable space.
But it is
So you
usable.
could find, yeah, but is it practical for?
But they're using it now. Yes, it is practical. The customers there are using it.
Again, that's not that's something this body will decide.
Well,
So,
of
okay,
course.
So great.
But you've asked the question, I'm trying, the problem is, it's been a moving target. We're trying to address, and believe me, it's been a process that started one way. It was said there were concerns with some easements. We addressed that. Then there were concerns with setbacks. We addressed that. And then it came back, we had a meeting at the township with the city attorney, and I believe, Lisa, you were at that meeting, and Julie, you were nice enough to host the meeting. And at that meeting, before we sat down, it was, you're going to the planning commission only, it's a site plan. We left that meeting, and so I'm giving you this backstory because there's a lot that has gone on with this project, and every time we come up with a solution, we keep hearing another roadblock, if you will, or some other issue that we haven't addressed. We've genuinely tried to address every single comment that this body has had, every single comment that the planner has had. We have a great deal of respect for. And so it's a little frustrating when we're here. It takes time and effort. It took us, 3-4 weeks to revise the plans and costs and time and energy. And now for you to make a comment like you just made a moment ago that says that there's only 3 or 4 feet there, and you didn't take into consideration the 10,000 square foot of open space, it's very frustrating. So I want to share that with you. And you can vote however you may,
Yeah,
Chairman.
and-
Yeah, absolutely.
But frankly, it's not my issue, my biggest concern, even though it's, well, in part. One thing, under the C5, it does, number 3, encourage originality, flexibility, and innovation in site planning and development, including architecture, landscape, and graphic design in a manner comparable and harmonious with adjoining development within this district as a whole. Frankly, that is the biggest issue I have.
Okay.
I mean, I get why you want to do this. It'd be quite profitable and probably using property that was a throw-in in the piece that you acquired. And again, that's my editorial. But this is a building that's just jammed into it. And if you want to build it, and it probably should have been done, I don't have any decision on the matter, as a C5, okay? And then just come in and build it as a building in a piece of property that you own, and then let's subject it to those standards. I don't know that frankly that this meets many or all of those requirements set in that part of the ordinance. Mr. Turner, I'm sorry, I think I may have interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I may not be the longest-serving person up here, but I've been around a little bit, and I can't, for the life of me, envision any time when we've used these little strips of land that you have identified in the open space calculation. I've never seen that. This is certainly something very unique in the way you're approaching this. I do appreciate, as I said last time, I appreciate the alternative plan that you came forth with. But to me, and Mr. Moffett just said it, I stole my thunder in a way, it looks to me like you're just taking this building and trying to squeeze it in here, however you can do it, now removing Longfellow Drive just to make it fit. Now, I understand if this building number 2 wasn't there, this probably would be a great great design, but what we have is, to my opinion, there's too many questions, too many problems for me. I see what you're doing, and I do agree. I understand why you want to do it, but the ordinance is the ordinance, and if you're including setbacks as open space, I have a problem with that.
Yeah, if I may, we are not including setbacks as open space. I believe that we are exactly following the ordinance. You probably haven't seen the 3-foot area counted before, because that's above and beyond. It's not required to show you all the little snippets that we are counting. That's not in the ordinance. I went above and beyond and said,
What is
okay,
the ordinance
we'll
requirement?
show that.
The square footage, and what do we have?
I'd have to look that
I
up.
hear what you're saying, Mr. Wakefield. I guess we have a difference of interpretation, which I don't think it's interpretable. The fact is the fact, and I do believe that you're trying to put this building here to fill up this piece of property because, like Mr. Moffett said, maybe if this was originally planned, it would have made sense. But now it raises some questions for me still. I'm uncomfortable supporting this proposal. That's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can convince me otherwise.
Sure.
But from what I see here, I'm uncomfortable with what you're proposing.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Mr. Turner. The comment that you made regarding the character of the area, if you look at any of the setbacks, and Ben was going to address that in a moment, you said it should be in consistency with the surrounding area, correct?
That's what the ordinance
That-
requires.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's exactly what is built there. There wasn't this 50-foot, magical 50-foot setback that had to be all the way around the project. Things are being selectively enforced. If you look at Phase 1 or Phase 2, it doesn't have that 50-foot setback all the way around. So that's what we're trying to say, is that every time we address one comment, there's another comment made, and it provides all of this, confusion. It shouldn't be confusing. The fact of the matter is that we do have additional, regarding the open space, the property to the west, which is about 10,000 square feet, which is the size that the entire park was, is still there. That's reality. Unfortunately, because the planner, in her wisdom, wanted us not to count it, and this body didn't want us to count it, we didn't count it in the calculation. But if you really look at the reality, it's not a 3-foot strip. It's a 55-foot strip or 75-foot strip that goes back all along the perimeter of our western property line. So it's not fair to make that representation because it's inaccurate. It's 100% inaccurate. So the reality is that's where the customers, although this body is not acknowledging that open space area, it's being used and has been being used for the past 4 years for that purpose. So even doing that, we still are in excess of the ordinance requirement. That's why we had to do it that way, that we didn't have a choice. So if you put that 50-foot, that area to the west, we're far in excess of the requirement. And you talk about the character and in harmony, we're the exact same setbacks as all of the other buildings. And the other thing that I want to say is along the area that we're taking out, anyone saying that that doesn't exist, building number 4 exists that same exact way, where the front door is facing a side yard. It's the exact same way. And on building number 10, that's the exact same thing as well. When you walk out your front door, there's an open space there. There's no road. So it's
Where are those?
right, well, it's on the overall, right there, you can see. On,
Oh,
right here, Town Center Village 1, that furthest building, right there. Yeah, I can use that thing. There's one there, and then this particular one here. Same exact thing. That's what we're doing right across the street, and that's existing building. Under the C5, when this was developed many years ago, this would have been permissible. It absolutely, under the C5 zoning, if this building, to your point, if this was on the site plan back then, we wouldn't have this deliberation and debate back and forth. I mean, it would have been part of the site plan, it would have been an approved use.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that's a very good point for us to take as we're trying to work through PUD and work together, is that's a good point about the 10,000 square feet of green space that is there now. That is being used. It is what it is. And we had the discussion a month ago that we can't use that as our only park-like open space because of the easements.
Right.
So we're not, or the petitioner is not doing that. but he's merely saying, we can't look at this red 3-foot strip on this plan as trying to just squeeze in some space to be added for the total accumulation. I think there's probably other issues with this property that people may have, but the green space is probably not, we probably shouldn't pick on those strips of land, because overall you do have that 10,000 square feet there and people are using it. That's just the reality right now. So in addition to being able to use that, then we have the new park-like settings that they have provided. Now, that's just my opinion on getting hung up on the amount. They may, by calculations, meet the requirements of the green space, and we may not like how it looks on paper with these strips of land here and there, but if they do meet it, we have to keep in mind that there's 10,000 square feet of space that people are using. Now, I'm not saying that we agree with the overall plan. There's probably other comments that need to be made, but maybe we shouldn't get hung up on that, and always keep in mind that green space, if you've driven it, you'll understand it, what that is, so.
Through the chair, for the record, it is 20,608 square feet. It's not 10,000. It's 20,608 square feet.
That,
Yes, the area is 56 feet wide by 368 feet long. So it's 20 additional thousand square feet.
thank you.
Because I have the gavel, I do get the last word, but there's a reason the ordinance does encourage it being a contiguous piece. Okay, so you're not pulling pieces from that aren't necessarily dedicated to that use. My point where, you could go a half a mile down the road and say, well, I got 10,000, I got 20,000 acres there, and, well, that counts as my open space, and I believe that would violate the intent of the ordinance. One could argue that this piece isn't contiguous, isn't unique, an open space for that property, and that could be one argument that's made. And,
But it's the same parcel ID. It's the same parcel ID, sir.
Any other questions for the petitioner? All right, I will point out that this is, one step, the purpose this evening is to determine whether this proposal has the potential to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And that the next step, there will be a public hearing, so all those individuals that live around there will then come and we'll get their feedback too on what's being proposed there. If there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So, may I clarify then, before the motion, then, today we're going to move forward whether if this has merit and allow this to come back as a public hearing?
Well, that it has the potential to meet the zoning ordinances. Is that right, Mr. Kirk?
Correct.
So, Mr. Kirk, the potential to meet the zoning ordinance means, coming in as a PUD, though, we work together with the existing zoning ordinance to move forward.
You're finding that it has merit, and the second that it has the potential to meet. If you have any concerns over any potential ordinance issues, I would spell those out.
I see. So, okay, I need to review then. From what I gather from our discussion, our potential issues with the zoning variances is the setback only? Do any other commissioners have any, am I missing something? No, so it's just with the setback calculations. Okay. So, Mr. Kirk, if I propose to move forward, then how do we incorporate the discussion over the setback?
Well, What we've done in the past is, if you make the motion that it has merit and potential to meet the ordinances, we usually like giving them some direction as to what the issues are that are still outstanding, whether it be the setbacks, the amount of green space, the location of the green space. Those are things you can work through at the next level, but I think it's good to set forth what your concerns are, what everyone's concerns are.
Or if you want to do it as a blanket, to address the comments by the township's professional staff.
The purpose of the four-step, it takes a little bit of time for the developers, but the purpose is so they don't have to go through a lot of expense to come in with a full plan, full site plan. So you get to the first step and you go through these, address the issues. If you think it can possibly, you move on. If you don't, then you let them know.
Okay.
That's the purpose
Okay.
of the four steps.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Casale.
I move to conclude that site plan number 24-25, Tony Gallo Companies for Town Center Villas Number 3, vacant parkland, part of parcel number 23-07-36-300-081, located north of Lakeside Boulevard, east of Shaner Road, 27-unit multifamily building. The proposal has merit and the potential to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance if they address the comments made by the township professionals regarding the setbacks, green space, et cetera.
Support.
Support.
Okay. Moved by Casale, support by Apone. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Casale?
Yes.
Commissioner Apone?
Yes.
Commissioner LeRae?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
No.
Commissioner Dishow?
Yes.
Commissioner Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
And the chair votes no.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Planning Director's report?
I don't have anything, Chairman.
Okay. One more motion. Motion
Move to adjourn.
Is there support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.